Hiya, Barbie.
Hi, Ken.
You want to go do a podcast?
Sure.
Jump in.
Gathered friends, listen again to the tale of binging Barbie. I'm your host, John, and with me I have my co-host. You waste your time with skull spiders? Oh, you disappoint me again, Jay!
What noise do the little saw trap
the
thingies make?
bear traps? Snap, snap.
Yeah,
Ouch.
they reminded me that this is completely off topic, but they reminded me of the Junji Ito comic about like the mechanical legs that attach themselves to fish, and so the fish are like coming up out of the water.
Anyway, this is a
Interesting.
podcast about toy media franchises, 2000s nostalgia, and other such ephemera. This week we are continuing our series on Bionicle, and we'll be talking about the first season of Generation 2's tie-in show, Bionicle: The Journey to One.
Yeah,
Ba-da-ba.
Generation 2. This is the reboot of
Ooh.
Bionicle. Yeah, John and I were just talking. Oh wait, we should introduce our guest. We have Toa returning again,
I'm here.
joining us. Yeah, joining us for more Bionicle. Gen 2. What's your thoughts overall on Gen 2?
I have a lot of mixed emotions around Generation 2
Okay.
because in a lot of ways, like I've been a part of a lot of Bionicle groups that have all been around like, yeah, let's bring Bionicle back.
Oh yeah.
Let's make sure that the story's been finished and let's keep it going, and they kind of out of nowhere released Generation 2 like 5 years after the first one ended, and the building system is completely different, the story is completely different, the characters are the same but
Ish.
yeah, the actual, I guess the names of the characters are mostly the same. The characterizations are completely different for a lot of them. And so overall, like, it's weird because they took a story that was already super well developed and kind of shrunk it back to what the first year was, where like Bionicle's first year wasn't super developed. It was very simple and still mysterious and interesting. And they kind of tried to do that, but I think they overcorrected for a lot of the things that they thought were mistakes with Bionicle. And unfortunately, they cut out a lot of the like mystery and intrigue that the original series had. So I'll go into it a little bit more as we get into the specific details.
Right.
But I think the major parts that I noticed with Generation 2 is, for the most part, the story was a bit of a disappointment, but the sets themselves, especially for the first
The
set release,
first wave of Toa were just so beautiful because they were
great.
like they were going back to the original classic design but updating it for like our modern system, which looked really nice and very much like the characters for the most part.
Yeah.
Some of them
And
were
they
very
did
creative in redesigns.
and they did a great job with the colors that they use for the characters, especially giving defined colors for like Onua being a Toa of Earth, um,
Master.
not just being black, but or, yes, well, he's also a Toa. They list him as Toa, but yes, as the Master of Earth, being both black and purple was a good touch.
Yeah.
They added
I'm
gear functionality back, which was unexpected but appreciated. Uh, yeah. Overall, like, the set designs were pretty good, even though like I'm not a big fan of the CCBS system. That's the character creation building system, which Hero Factory introduced and was used for things like the Ben 10 Lego sets and Bionicle and think they used him for a few Star Wars sets as well.
Yeah,
Mhm.
the creepy Luke Skywalker action
Yeah.
figure looking.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Unfortunately, though, there wasn't a whole lot of like creative villains that came out. The first year, you had one giant spider. Each Toa
Yeah.
came with like a little baby spider, and that was it. The second wave, they had villains that were all exactly the same color, looked almost exactly the same, were not very distinctive from one another, and very
Yeah,
forgettable. And the
they
skull
were
people.
yeah, the skull people were kind of like technically it was really interesting cuz all their masks were technically different, but they were all skull shapes, so they kind of just looked the same even if they were different. It was an
Hmm.
odd choice. I will say they do a good job with character silhouettes in this, more so even than the
Yeah.
original, where, the original Toa Mata, Toa Nuva, and Toa Metru, and Hordika for that matter, all really much have like the same outline. Some of them are a little bit taller, or some of them have a hunchback, or some of them, but for the most part, basically looks the same. With this, it's like, okay, Onua is like twice as wide as everybody else.
Yeah.
Um, Gali is slender and sleek, along with Liwa for that matter. Um,
Pohatu's really short.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a good time. And with the first wave release, also, I feel like their weapons were really interesting. The direction they went with that, like they gave Pohachu
A boomerang.
boomerangs, which was awesome. And in like the story snippets that we got, the little like web mini series, um, he's got this like Australian accent. I'm like, okay, I love it. Australian Pohachu. He's super serious. Okay, love it. We don't see that in this series at all, but that's okay.
Uh,
Yeah. Some of the characterization didn't quite translate from the 2D to this Netflix series.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah.
oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah. For context here, leading up to Bionicle Gen 2, it seemed that Lego Hero Factory was not nearly as successful as Lego had been hoping. So in 2013, they tested an idea for a reboot of Bionicle, which was successful enough that they got approval and started working on this new reboot generation of Bionicle. Um, I couldn't find who was like the lead story person, but we have Matt Bedecker who was a designer who worked on Hero Factory, was promoted to a senior designer on Bionicle. Um, and then Ryder Wyndham, who is most known as a Star Wars novel writer, was brought in to write the tie-in books. And then Christian Faber and Greg Farsty were brought on as creative consultants.
Also, I
That could
believe
potentially,
Farshti, uh, uh, Chris Faber also was the one who introduced the idea of Gen 2 to the Lego group.
okay.
Like, he created a lot of the original concept about what the story could be, and then they brought it to other people who just slimmed it down to, like, the bare bones, simplistic idea of it.
Yeah. Which, yeah, that
yeah,
I was curious how much actual input they had in the process, because creative consultants could mean, they were calling the shots, or it could mean Lego sent them an email saying, "Hey, what do you think?" And they said, "Looks good."
yeah, yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so yeah, so it sounds like they might have had a little bit more input on this than just that. But yeah, they would. The idea is they would take inspiration from the original run of Bionicle, and create a new story with slightly simpler lore, a storyline that would be easier to maintain. Um, and yeah, I was reading through, there was like a Bible of the style and the design and the story and all of that. And
Yeah,
the secret idea, which was not revealed at first, but which was kind of the central theme of this, was that the Mask of Time, which we saw in Gen 1, was actually just half of a mask. And so
mm,
this new generation would explore what happened to the other half of this mask. And then fans would be able to kind of fill in the blanks of how the two connect back to each other. Um, And this initial pitch covered 3 years starting in 2015, but unfortunately the line was canceled in 2016 during low sales, so we never really saw what the story was building towards.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, it's reminiscent of Hero Factory in that you can tell that they had bigger ideas. And with Hero Factory, we have since then learned what some of those ideas were potentially. But yeah, I wasn't able to find any behind the scenes details on Bionicle. Maybe that'll come out in a few years, but yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting because like this is the first time that Bionicle's released during a time where like now a lot of their fan base and especially a lot of the older fan base is really comfortable with the internet and stuff.
Yeah.
So we have a lot more preserved from what was released at the time, and we have a lot more like leaks and a lot more just things like that that were saved. So even like right now, I'm looking through. There's a style guide that somebody, I guess, leaked from Lego or somebody took from Lego. I don't know, but and it's really interesting because you can see a lot of the like marketing thought process behind a lot of what they did, and you can tell this version of Bionicle was a lot more. There was a lot more marketing oversight on this one. There were a lot more higher ups looking at the project, um, because yeah, it is a beloved name of theirs. Like, if nothing else, the Bionicle name has a lot of weight to it within Lego fans. Um, and I do think they were really trying to fix some of the issues that the first series had, um, while also making it more palatable, which is also, I don't know, in some ways made it, I think,
Oversimplifying it as well a bit.
yeah. So it's very interesting with the time frame in which this came out. Of course, 5 years after is not in retrospect, that's not a lot of time in between
Yeah.
set releases. Now it's been almost 10 years since
Mm-hmm.
this series came out. Um, but now a lot of the Bionicle fans are, rather than being, 8 to 10, um, are between 15 and 20, um, and so it's interesting just in general the timeline where this lines up.
Yeah. I wonder if this kind of falls in an awkward time where a lot of the former fans of Bionicle have kind of left Bionicle behind, but they haven't
Mm-hmm.
gotten to the point in their lives where they've built up that nostalgia to look back on Bionicle. Because for us,
Yeah,
this was like end of high school when this stuff was
yeah,
happening. Um, so yeah, I think it kind of makes sense that like it maybe hit at just the wrong time to
Mm-hmm.
not be a big enough deal for Lego to then continue it.
And the only ones
yeah,
that were really buying into it were the ones that were wanting for it to come back and were actively in the process. Because I remember when the leaks were coming out of like the promo images, the black and white promo images, the very blurry images of like what Tahu would look like, and we're like, holy crap! Like, is this fake? Is it real? And it was real, and it looked really cool. And it was like, yes.
yeah,
And then nobody bought the sets because I remember going
yeah,
to the States like the year later, and like all the Walmarts, all the stores had their bargain bins full of, well, pretty much the skull people, but yeah, pretty much Bionicle leftover.
yeah, yeah. And like it really did hit at a weird time for me, because I was like, this is last 2 years of high school for me. I'm, you know, I'm really not thinking as much about this kind of stuff. I'm thinking about, okay, where do I need to go to college? Where do I like but I'm trying to align my future at the same time. I'm like, oh, Bionicle stuff is out. Awesome. Um, I'll buy a few sets, but I can't focus on all of it right now. I have other things. So it really did come out at a time where I didn't have as much money and I didn't have as much time, and I wanted to, but I just really couldn't. Versus like now, where it's like, okay, I have more free time. I have a bit more adult money. If it were to release again now, the story would be different. I would probably be collecting all of the sets if I can, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. It's that weird thing of I was seeing a graph that I think this was specifically in relation to video games of like as you get older, you have more money with which to invest in games, but your time kind of goes down, the
Mm-hmm.
available time. But I think, yeah, there is that awkward spot in high school where it's like you don't have much money. At least for me, I never had like summer jobs or anything because that wasn't feasible with
Right.
my
You
Yeah.
summer
know,
plans. Um,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, it was like, no, I don't have much money and I don't have a ton of extra time that I'm not already devoting to school or after school stuff or other things that I'm interested in. Um
Yeah.
so yeah, whereas now, yeah, as you were saying, now I would have a little bit more time to invest in Bionicle and a lot more money.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe not money
So
anymore because of how expensive they are now.
Well, yeah, relative
also
relative to
true.
when I was a teenager, I have more money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
uh,
So
Well, yeah,
let's talk
this
the show. Let's talk about the
yeah,
show.
this is Bionicle Journey to One, um, released March 3, 2016 on Netflix. This is just the first season we're covering today. The animation was done by Volta, who's a French Canadian visual development studio. They
mm,
do design and marketing and cinematic work primarily for video games, which I think you can kind of tell in the animation. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Um,
yeah.
but they did work for Borderlands 3, Anthem, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, a whole bunch of other projects. They have a website you can look at if you're ever interested in what they do. And then these episodes were directed by Nicolas D. Robital, who was actually an assistant director on Assassin's Creed 3 and Assassin's Creed Black Flag.
Hmm.
I think those are
Mhm.
generally considered good games within the series. I don't know a ton about.
Depends on who you asks.
Yeah. Generally, I feel like it's one of those things where like the longer the series goes, the less people like the new ones. But I
Yeah.
think those ones generally are pretty well received.
Yeah, Black Flag is the only one that I've played any of, and when I did that, I was
Same.
mainly going around on my ship, so not
Yeah.
much assassinating
Fire.
going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, these episodes are also written by Mark Palmer,
Hmm.
who also wrote for the Buzz Lightyear Star Command show,
Yeah.
which I remember hearing about. I haven't ever seen it. Um, but then
Disney
also,
doesn't want you to think it exists at all. They keep hiding the fact that it happened.
I've heard good things about it.
I don't know why they don't like it for some reason.
Oh yeah,
Maybe
I
maybe
watched
it's
this
because
show. That's great. I loved it.
Yeah.
I wonder if it has to do with Lightyear
I'm
because
guessing
No, it
they
was
seem
much
similar.
earlier than that they didn't care for it.
Okay.
I think it was
really.
like the creators of Toy Story didn't love the show.
Okay.
Hmm.
Apparently they liked Lightyear or something though.
Uh,
The insanity of this is not a movie about the toy Lightyear. This isn't a movie adaptation of the toy Lightyear. This is the movie that Andy watched that made him get the toy Lightyear back in the 90s.
but with like with like
Yeah, no.
2010s visual effects
Yeah.
With like
and writing.
very Inception inspired plot. Or not
Yeah.
Inception, Interstellar.
Uh,
Uh, we may have to cover that at some point just because it's a toy movie in the weirdest possible way. Anyway, Mark Palmer wrote for Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, and also two shows that keep showing up with writers for movies we cover on the podcast. The Wild Thornberrys and Kim Possible.
Mm-hmm.
When I saw those in his credits, I was like, "Oh, have we covered this writer before?" Because we have covered a lot of people who have written for both of those shows.
Huh.
But no, we have not covered a Mark Palmer joint before. And then art direction by Marie Michelle Laflamme. I am bad at French pronunciations, but yeah, she's an art director who has mainly worked on, I assume, Quebecois productions.
That'd be my
since
guess.
they're
Yeah.
since they're based in French or French Canada, French Canada, whatever it's called,
French
Yeah,
Quebec.
yeah.
And then we have music by Mike Raznick, who is mainly a video game composer, worked on Oddworld, New and Tasty, and then Ratchet and Clank, the 2016 game.
Yeah. I remember when Toy and I were very excited when this show was announced. Then we
Yeah.
watched it and were
Yeah.
conflicted.
Well,
Um,
so I watched it late because like I didn't watch it when it first came out. I think it was because like I was using my family's Netflix account and I just didn't have the password at the time, and so I was
Hmm.
like, okay, I'll watch it when I finally get it. And I remember seeing a lot of reviews online where people were just like bashing it. I'm like, okay, everybody chill. I know people didn't like Legend Reborn. It's probably just going to be that situation where it's like it's not perfect, but it's made for kids, so maybe it'll be okay. And then I watched it and I was like, well, I see where they're coming from.
yes. Well, let's describe what the story is. So, the story takes place on the island of Okota, where long ago there were two mask-making brothers, Ikimu and Makuta. They wore the powerful mask of creation and control, respectively. Ikimu was the more successful of the two. Out of jealousy, Makuta forged the mask of ultimate power, able to wield all six elements, and the mask corrupted him, and Ikimu was forced to knock the mask off with a giant hammer. The energy this created sent Ikimu into deep sleep, while Makuta sank into the shadow realm, and the three masks of power were taken away and hidden somewhere. And so, thousands of years later, Makuta uses an army of skull spiders to try and take the Mask of Creation so he can escape the Shadow Realm. And that's when six Toa arrive and are able to defeat the skull spiders and reawaken Ikimu. Ikimu sends the Toa out on a quest to find the six elemental temples and the masks they contain. And on the journeys, each of the Toa encounter elemental creatures. Liwa, Gali, and Onewa immediately befriend the creatures. Tahu, Kopaka, and Pohatu instead start fighting them before realizing they will have to work together. And despite this, Pohatu remains suspicious of his elemental companion, Katar. And so the Toa get their new masks and gain the ability to combine with their elemental companions, or just hug each other really nicely. And they also
Backpack.
and they also each have visions of this maze inside which the mask of control is being held. And on their way to that maze, they are ambushed by Umarak, a hunter who is working for Makuta. And seeing that Pohatu is reluctant to combine with his companion, Umarak abruptly leaves. And so the Toa arrive at the maze and find themselves in a chamber with six doors, each corresponding to an element. All except Pohatu link up with their companions and go all through their doors into the chamber containing the mask. Pohatu hesitates, which gives Umarak just enough time to attack, incapacitating him and taking Qatar. Instead, Umarak steals the Mask of Control before the Toa can get to it and makes a run for it. Pohatu catches up to him first, and Umarak drops Qatar off the cliff. And Pohatu saves him, giving Umarak enough time to escape. Umarak tries to use the power of the mask, but Makuta is instead able to use it to take over Umarak's mind.
It's crazy. You
What?
did the summary for like the prologue in like maybe 2 minutes. something that it took them 14 minutes to do.
Yeah,
And I
that
think I
prologue.
understood yours better.
There's a concept which I was hearing recently where if the opening narration for your whatever your piece of media contains more than half words which the audience does not know going in, it's a problem.
Right.
Sure.
And yeah, I mean, I will admit sometimes the plot summaries that I write up for these shows fall into that category. But yeah, the prologue episode here, as you were saying, it's so long. And I feel kind
Yeah.
of bad because this is what I was asking for when we talked about Mask of Light. And they just kind of dump you into the story, no explanation. And you kind of, I mean, there is the very vague explanation, but there's a lot of the narrative that they've cut out and simplified in a way that
Hmm.
I felt kind of lost with that one. Um, but yeah, this is a real overcorrection for that. I was thinking about it because so many pieces of media think they can get away with starting with long narration. Um, I don't know if Lord of the Rings is the first piece of media to pull it off, but that's kind of, I think, why so many artists or writers think that they can do that as well. But Lord of the
Yeah.
Rings is the exception to the rule. And Lord of the Rings did it in 7 minutes.
Right. Well, and even Lord of the Rings does it wrong with The Hobbit. The
Yeah.
Hobbit starts with a long introduction, and it's not needed. You can
No. Yeah.
entirely skip it, and the rest of the story tells you that. I, I think it's necessary. It was necessary for Lord of the Rings because it builds a nice tension, and
Yeah.
it tells you about the story. With the Bionicle movies, the previous ones, aside from Legend Reborn, they all start similarly, where they do give us a little bit of exposition. It's very small. It's told like as if it's, you know, one person just telling a story. I wanted to use the phrase around the campfire, but I realized they did that in this one and it's bad. Um, but you know, it's one person telling a story using very simple stones, very simple words, just a very rundown version of the story to where you're like, okay, I understand what it is, but I might want to look into that more later because that seemed interesting. Um, this one,
They're just summarizing the webisodes while using
exactly.
that as reference footage when it's like just put the webisodes as the prologue. Just watch through all of that and then you get to the
Yeah,
story.
because here's the crazy thing: it's a 15-minute plot summary of a 30-minute like webisode series. It's just 15 minutes of more content that they could have put in, or they could have taken the webisode, cut it down a little bit, maybe, and just fit it into their 14-minute time frame. But they decided no, we're gonna try and imitate the comma is sitting around a campfire and telling stories vibe, and then have Protector of Fire, great name for a character who I'm really attached to, by the way. Um, try and tell the stories of what happened, but it opens as if it's like an open dialogue to all of the other Akotans that are sitting there. And literally, he shushes, like, one of them is like, oh, I've got a question. He's like, no, don't have questions. Just listen.
Also, these are the events that just happened that he's telling to the people.
Yeah. Like they wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Uh,
It so my history with the show is I was on Netflix one day, 2016 must have been, scrolling through. I go, oh, look, a Bionicle show. I click
mhm.
on it. I watch about 5 minutes of or no, might have gotten 10 minutes in of the episode. And I go, this is bad. And then I exit out of it, never watch it again. I went to watch it for this podcast, and it was still on the 10 minutes scene from back in 2016 when I tried to watch it the first time.
to be fair, okay, so I watched the prologue twice for this series because I watched it one time, just half paying attention to it, being like, this is a slog, and I got distracted. And then I went and watched the web series, and I was like, oh, okay, this is actually pretty good. Maybe the prologue is okay, and I just didn't understand it. I watched the prologue, and 1.5 times speed still dragged. It was still too long.
Yeah, and they didn't
Ugh.
really accurately give you the summary of the webisodes. It's just like this vague
Yeah.
things that mission mash. It's like, okay, this happened. Why? I don't
They
know. It's like, oh.
they had some just like weird word choices. Like, yeah, they somehow found a way to awaken Ikimu. It's like, okay, no, I feel like there was more detail to it, but I guess when you put it like that, yeah, it is kind of a terrible plot device.
Oh, my
Um,
favorite line from this is, and I wrote it down because I love it so much, is the challenges that lie ahead are huge.
Nice.
cool.
Like, you don't want to go back to the drawing board on that last word there. Do you think we could find something a little bit more descriptive than
Huge.
huge?
It really feels like the prologue was probably written by an intern who was like, oh, wait, we should probably have a prologue explaining the webisodes. Like, oh, hey, yeah, come in, write this prologue.
Yeah.
It's like, okay. He watches it like 2 times speed. It's like, I think this is what happens. And
Yeah.
that's the prologue.
They're like, okay, you
Honestly,
have to watch the prologue, but you can't reference the videos at the same time. You have to watch them first and then write the prologue by memory, and hopefully it'll work out.
honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they just weren't given a lot of time to figure that out, because it would make sense. They're drawing animation from pre-existing stuff, and the new
Yeah.
animation they're bringing in is very simple. So yeah, maybe someone is like, hey, you need to do something to get us up to speed, and they just kind of did the least effort they could to try and get it out as quick as possible. Because yeah, a lot of the problems with it, if they went back and did a second draft, like, yeah, you would choose a different word than huge.
Yeah. Yeah. It very much felt like for a lot of this, and we'll see this continuously, it felt like they really were just like ticking the boxes. Like, oh, it's Bionicle. It'll sell well regardless. Just write something. Kids will eat it up. It'll be fine. No, this is just not true. We're used to, like, I give Hero Factory a lot of crap, even though I remember a lot of good things from the show. I was like, okay, this was okay. I haven't watched it in years. I know that I'm excited to watch your guys's or listen to your guys's take on them. But
Uh-huh.
which go back at this point. This podcast is out, so you should listen to the other podcasts if you haven't. But it wasn't perfect, but I felt like the stories were like coherent, at least.
Yeah.
Um,
Enough. Yeah.
yeah. With this, like, even just with the prologue, it introduces things that like make me ask more questions than it answers. Like, they specifically mentioned parents.
Yeah.
So
And
is love canon? How does this work?
it doesn't make sense when they bring up the parents. Like, it's a line for the kids watching it on Netflix. It
Yeah.
doesn't make sense in universe. It's like in a video game when a character is like, press A to jump.
Yeah.
Tells Mario, press A to jump.
Yeah. Well, it's
But
mentioned both in this prologue and in the web series that they canonically have parents, that some of them are children, which means like we have no idea what the reproductive systems of these new characters are, but they can reproduce in some way, shape, or form. I don't know if it's like the movie Robots where they have to
I was
order
just
a
gonna
child
say
on
it's
Amazon.
robots.
Yeah. But
John,
it's
have
Are
you
just
they
seen
grown in
robots?
eggs? I
yes.
loved robots as a
Okay,
kid. Yeah.
because
Well,
you were asking who Jennifer Coolidge is. She plays the aunt. Is it Aunt Fanny?
she does. That's
Oh.
crazy. Yeah, it's Aunt Fanny.
Yeah, because she's in Lego Hero Factory and I was bringing up how
Oh,
much I
that's
love
so
her in
funny.
The White Lotus, and played a very differently designed character in Lego Hero Factory.
Yeah, fair.
Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
sidebar on Lego Hero Factory. But yeah, it starts out so odd.
Yeah, as the first episode, you watching 10 minutes and stopping, I feel like is probably the average viewing experience.
Yeah.
Except for kids that their parents were just like, okay, I'll just put this on, whatever, it's kids media, it'll be fine, and walked away. And then the kids watched and probably didn't pay attention and got distracted.
Or the
Yeah.
fans that just had to like push through because it's Bionicle.
Yeah.
I was honestly
Exactly.
surprised to see that this show was still on Netflix. With
Yeah, I
how
mean,
much stuff gets taken off of streaming nowadays, I was like, what is this still doing here?
I mean, if it
Netflix
was
paid to have
Max,
it, so
sure,
they're
yes, it'd definitely be gone 10 years ago.
Yeah. They would
it wouldn't have
retroactively
been
remove
released.
it from your memory.
Yeah, exactly. For
Too
the tax credit.
expensive. We're getting tax credit.
Oh
Uh,
goodness.
but yeah, no, I wonder, I wish Netflix would share this kind of data this far back of how
Mhm.
many people watched 5 to 10 minutes of the first episode and bailed.
Yeah,
Because I would
I
guess it
would
is
assume
higher than average.
it's a lot, I'm sure. Uh, but anyways,
Yeah,
I guess moving outside of the prologue, it does get better. It does get better.
it gets
I will
better.
say, I do think I noticed this in a lot of the advertisements for this show. It shows the original Tahu, like the not the Uniter form, but the Masters form, which makes me think that it probably was part of the plan for them to do probably at least 1 or 2 episodes with the Masters and then go into the Uniters. So probably have 3 seasons, like two
Yeah.
episodes, 2 episodes, 2 episodes. Because I don't know why they would create and rig a character model for Tahu if they're going to do that. But obviously, we don't see any of those character models in the show. So maybe it was just, a temporary one while they were getting the new models or
Maybe
whatnot.
a marketing thing.
Um,
I don't know.
yeah. But either way, they do the whole Toa Nuva thing of they get new armor and masks and are stronger now.
Yeah.
And they
Well, they seem weaker because they don't have their abilities until they hug a creature.
yeah, it's okay. So they start with like the first actual episode and they're like, "Whoa, we've got all these new elemental powers." And it's like that was the whole point of the first part of the series was you went to get the golden masks to get your elemental powers. So you've had elemental powers for a while
Yeah,
now, but now you
yeah.
have better ones, but also they're not good unless you're little spoon to a little creature on your back. I'm confused.
Yeah. The storytelling is a little bit odd. Honestly, I think if you cut out the prologue, just start with the second episode, which is technically episode 1,
Yeah.
none of these issues are issues. Which is, I mean, yeah, I wonder who was overseeing story, if anyone, or if it was just kind of story by committee. Because it feels
Yeah.
surprisingly messy for we're bringing back Bionicle and we're paying more attention to story to try and make it so that we don't end up with unmanageable lore in 5
Yeah.
years.
Yeah. It's weird too cuz like okay, they change a lot of the how bionicle powers work because in the original
Yeah.
show it was pretty cut and dry, but it there was still a lot. So in the original series it was they have elemental powers each, all the heroes, and then they also have mask powers, and the mask powers do something different from the elemental powers aside from Takanuva. He's kind of the one that's kind of weird, but he has special elemental powers, so it's different. But for the most part, separate powers, separate abilities. And most every like enemy or creature that they fight also has their own power of some kind, whether it's an elemental power like ice or fire, or maybe a different kind of element like acid or sonics, um, or it's like a primal power of like anger, fear, rage, that kind of thing. Um, in this one, powers are less defined as what they do and don't do. For instance, and the big one for me is Liwa is the Toa of jungle, or sorry, the master of jungle in this. But I see him using wind powers more than anything else.
Yeah.
He does vines a few times or make the trees go away and back. But like he's using wind to push him forward to make him run faster. He's
Mm-hmm.
making little cyclones. He should be a Toa of air, but he's not. Um, Gali, this is actually admittedly a change that I'm okay with. Gali can breathe underwater despite not having a mask of water breathing. To be fair, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that could come with any like stock toe of water. They can breathe underwater. That's fine by me. But it does complicate the power system in this series a little bit more because there's less of a defined limitation.
Yeah.
So I don't know what all they can do.
I wonder if that's like, it used to be superhero media, everyone has like very defined powers and you get like the little list of strengths and weaknesses, and so and so can fly and so can lift heavy things. But then when you started to get into like the, I think especially the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you started to have characters who just kind of have powers and it's never clearly stated what they have, and everyone kind of has super strength and a lot of people can kind of fly, and it's very nebulous, and it's
Yeah.
more superheroes as a concept than as a power fantasy.
Yeah.
um Literal superpower fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, as a kid you're like, oh, I want to be Spider-Man because he can swing from buildings. No, I want to be Superman because he can fly. um
Right. Yeah.
Whereas now it's like, oh, I want to be, I don't know, Captain America because he's strong. No, you want to be Captain America because he's Captain America. There's not that like. So I wonder if that's an intentional thing to kind of pull back on that, or if it's just coincidence. It might be, or it could be like they didn't feel like defining powers or anything, and it was just a narrative contrivance to.
Yeah. So they hired a writer via freelance and says, "Okay, here's the basic idea that we have for the story. Here you go. Just make it this episode length. Fill the time with whatever you need to do." And
Yeah.
a lot of the time is filled with
Yeah.
them having a race against the water. Who can get there the fastest? Bicker that doesn't really have to do with
Okay,
character.
I enjoyed.
Yeah.
I
It's
enjoyed
most of
the
the episode, which is not great, especially when it's
which
like 2 episodes a season, which is a waste of time.
that is, yeah. I think I enjoyed this more than either of you, and
Probably.
Well,
we'll get
we have
into
a
it.
history of
But
this being
yeah,
part of our grief, but yes.
yeah. For me, I just felt like this was actually, as much as it was maybe overcorrecting for certain things, this was actually addressing issues that I had with early Bionicle. And this isn't better than early Bionicle, but I understood each of the Toa as a distinct character with a distinct, easy to understand personality that you get within like the first line they say,
Hmm.
which is something that I really struggled with, like Mask of Light trying to distinguish, or any of the other Bionicle movies. of like, okay, but what's this character's like deal in like a succinct way? And that's obviously if you read the supplemental novels or any of those things, you get a better understanding of who they are. Here it's literally laid out in the prologue of, this is Tahu, he's the leader. This is Liwa, he's the fun guy. This is Gali,
Mhm.
she's the girl.
Yep.
I think there's more characterization there than that, but
That I feel like that's basically it. If I'm honest, no, I see what you mean.
yeah, I don't know. And that part of that is, that race scene when they're racing to the island, you are getting a sense for how each of these characters interact with each other and how they themselves interact with the world around them. Um, so even though it's not like a super important plot thing, it felt like it had forward momentum. Even the first episode is so long, not time wise, but the sense of time flowing wise. I
Yeah.
was about what felt like 40 minutes into the episode, and I'm like, wait, I'm still on episode 1. Wait, there's still 16 minutes left. Wait, it's only been like 12 minutes.
Yeah. It it's got weird pacing.
Yeah,
That is for sure. And I know part of that is like a big part of Bionicle has always been the fetch quests. It's always
yeah,
get this
yeah,
golden mask, go get the discs, go do that. And this one keeps with that standing tradition of, hey, we got to go find each elemental creature. Um and unfortunately it is hard to do separate missions
yeah,
when there's 6 of them and you've got 22 minutes of runtime.
yeah, because
Yeah.
So,
they each have to kind of, which what I really appreciate about that is each of the characters has a different relationship to their elemental creature and how they react to that creature that reveals something about themselves and something about the creatures, because the creatures are kind of reflections of the core personality traits of each of the characters, which
yeah.
I think is a really smart way to help us understand who these characters are. It reminded me a bit of Barbie and Chelsea the Lost Birthday, where Chelsea is having this dream in which she's interacting with these animals, and it's like Darby, the giraffe. And you can read into it, okay, Darby, that's obviously Barbie, but it's Chelsea's understanding of Barbie. So there's a lot of interesting
Mhm.
character stuff going on there. So yeah, the way these Toa interact with their creatures kind of displays how they approach the world and how they see the world, where Liwa is immediately like, oh, we are best friends. I'm gonna race you, but it is a fun competitive, we're best friends race. Whereas Pohatu is like, I hate your guts, don't come near me. And it ends up being an actual like character arc for him, which I thought was really cool. But yeah,
I
So
it
just
this
takes a
really
is
wish
while.
that there was more time spent on that, because they just show up, the
yeah.
creature shows up next to them, it's like, yo, what's up? They have one moment of interaction before they finally do, like, okay, we'll be chill, and then they
Yeah,
move on.
Half of them do just like they're like, I don't know what that thing is, but I gotta punch it.
yeah,
And then it fails miserably for most of them. Like Pohachu's the only one that's like kind of equal, but like the rest of them are like, oh, I'm gonna try something, and then it gets like reflected back at them or
yeah.
something. It's like, oh, that's funny. I actually enjoyed that.
Yeah,
Uh,
that was the stuff that I really appreciated of this sort of story of, yeah, if we're gonna have these different stories, let's have them actually be, because yeah, Hero Factory has the episode where it's like all of the different heroes are going off on their little missions. It's like each mission proceeds the same way with the same
yeah,
story beats. Whereas here we're actually seeing, okay, there's a little bit of variation in how these Toa are interacting with their creatures. It's still, they all still follow the same narrative structure, and you kind of get the point with some of them. Like, there isn't much of a difference between Tahu and Kopaka, how they interact with their creatures, um,
yeah,
beyond just like surface level stuff. But yeah,
yeah,
I liked especially the difference between, honestly, just have Liwa and Pohatu. They could be the two different ends of the scales, and everyone else gets
Mm-hmm.
like truncated time with their creatures.
Yeah. Yeah. We like it really could have been, for the most part, like a montage scene. It
Yeah.
almost would have been funnier if it was a montage scene and then it cuts to like Pohachu just like struggling and being like,
Yeah.
okay, come on. Everybody else gets super cool animals and I get a scorpion, which is a super cool animal. But they do, this is one thing that I do appreciate. They establish in the web like videos that as soon as Pohachu sees one of the scorpion enemies in that in the like year one show, he's like, oh, I hate scorpions. That's my Australian accent. Um
Oh, I
and
scorpions.
yeah. And then they get to this series and he's like, oh, my companion's a scorpion. I hate that. And I'm like, okay, you know, if they tied that in a little bit better, this would make a lot more sense. Otherwise, I just think he's bigoted for no reason.
Which I think is, I think that works for me for giving him a character arc. That he is stubborn
Yeah.
and obstinate and a little bit slow to accept change.
Yeah.
Because I want each of these Toa to have a thing that I can say that is their character trait and it is distinct from everyone else's character trait. And so when he is acting stubborn, I'm like, okay, you are the stubborn one. I understand you as a character. I understand where your arc is going now. And I'm glad it is like a somewhat negative thing that he has to get over.
Yeah.
That then can become a positive thing because he can also be like the anchor for the rest of the team of like they know they can look to him and he will be there because he is stubborn and loyal. But at the
Yeah.
same time that is negative. I kind of, with 6 characters it's hard to do, but especially for a
Yeah.
TV show, if you have episodes where you can explore how these character traits are a positive and a negative, that's so much more interesting to me than lore building.
Yeah. That makes sense to me. I, with a lot of shows that are just kind of pumped out regularly, that's what it tends to be. Is it's
Yeah.
kind of like a hero collector um, show where they introduce one hero at a time. That hero probably has personality traits related to whatever power or elemental ability or animal creature it's based off of, and then they move on to the next one. Bionicle has never really had the that kind of ease of storytelling where they introduce one character at a time. They've kind of always had to jump in and be like, there are 6 characters you need to know, and maybe 6 more little guys, and maybe 6 more bad guys. So I do appreciate
And
that at
6 more
least
old guys.
the 6 more old guys too. Yeah, at least in this one, I do agree with you. It's way easier to jump in and be like, oh, I know what that dude is about. I get it. Um, And I do think it was a very smart idea, story wise, for them to concentrate on Pohachu. And I say that because, like, historically, sales for the sets have been mostly red guy gets a lot of sales, green guy gets a lot of sales, blue one gets a lot of sales. Um, the brown one is the one generally without as many sales. And especially now in this year where they've made the toe of Earth, both or the Master of Earth, both black and purple. Purple being now a good color to attach to. They still have brown as a color though,
Yeah.
and so brown is going to be the hardest color to sell. Obviously, they've done a lot more work with like the character design and especially with the year prior being like boomerangs as his weapon. It worked pretty well, and this one is kind of cool too. I guess he's got like a mace kind of thing. Um, but he's still probably going to be the harder of the ones to sell. So focusing on him as the like main character that we see is a really smart marketing idea on their part. Um, interesting though, because in my mind I'm like, okay, I'm used to seeing the red guy. I'm
Yeah.
used to seeing red, blue, and green, and then the other colors are kind of sidelined. And this one, it's like, no, we'll see brown. Honestly, red and white still are kind of sidelined. They're there.
Yeah.
Um, but for the most part, like the ones that stood out to me were Onua, Liwa, and Pohachu, which were interesting. Wasn't expecting it, but I kind of enjoyed it.
Yeah. I again, I like this a lot more than either of you did. It worked for me in a way that, again, I think Mask of Light is a more complicated story. In like, it's not complicated, but it is more complicated than what they're doing here with Journey to One. But as like an on ramp to Bionicle as a concept, I think this does a better job bringing in a new audience.
Yeah.
Skipping the prologue episode, which
Well,
Right. Yeah.
clearly not, since it failed. But yeah, I see
Yeah.
what you mean.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, with original Bionicle Generation 1, when they brought in Mask of Light, they had already had pretty much 2 years of success.
yeah,
Mhm.
Movies, like tie-in movies, were not very common, especially not as common as they are now. It just
Well,
but like
depended.
for toys, it wasn't like as big of a thing where it's like every
Yeah.
toy series has a show and a movie, and
yeah, I mean, it depends.
Especially
some of
not
them
Lego.
did.
Especially not,
Not
Lego.
Lego. Yeah.
Not Lego, right?
A lot of obviously we did have like, anything Marvel or DC did, but those were higher budgeted companies. Lego had never really put that kind of marketing budget into very many movies. So that was like, it was the icing on the cake for them
Yeah.
to have a movie that year. Rather than in this one, it's like, this is how you're going to get people hooked. It's sink or swim with this. And it unfortunately they did not bring floaties.
Yeah.
Um,
I would say the team behind the show brought the floaties. I'm not entirely convinced that everyone else was pulling their weight on the swim team. I don't know. This metaphor has escaped me.
There is just a lot of very odd choices, not just in the
Yeah.
writing, but like in the other elements, which we'll be talking about later on. But
Yeah.
yeah,
For as much as I liked this more than you did, like, yeah, my score for the story here is still a 3. And that's being a bit generous because the prologue should really be bringing it down more. Um, I'll just prologue. I'll set that aside. That is its own thing. It is whatever. But just for these 2 episodes, it worked for me.
fair.
It didn't work better than any of the other Bionicle stuff except for Legend Reborn.
mhm.
But yeah, there was stuff I could latch on to as not a newcomer, but kind of a newcomer.
Sure. I gave the story a very harsh 1. Um, I didn't really care for it. I felt that a lot of it was directionless at times. Even the stuff that they had direction, I didn't love how they pulled it off. Um, I I don't love this. So there you go.
Yeah, I gave it a 1.5. I think there are certain aspects of it that I felt like were like, obviously 0 is they didn't try, it was terrible. 1 is like they barely tried. I feel like they tried just a little bit more than barely for me. But it's not something that I ever hope to rewatch. Like like visually it's fine. And I enjoy certain aspects of the animation side, which we'll get into, but
Mhm.
the actual story of this has a lot of struggles. There's really, like, filled with really bad writing, just
Yeah.
through and through. There's in episode 2 specifically, there's a right before they get to the race over the water, which, by the way, I liked. I thought that was fine. That was good character building. It didn't need to be as long as it was, but I enjoyed it. It showed off their powers. It was cool. It's fun.
Mm-hmm.
But prior to that, they race to the cliff's edge. And this is kind of like an unannounced race, but they're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get there first. Tahu does get there first, mind you, and then he's like, haha, I win. And Gali's like, oh, I didn't even know we were racing. And Onua's like, you didn't win. And Tahu's like, no, I got here first. And Onua's like, anyways, let's do something else. And I'm like, why are you gaslighting Tahu? Just let him have his W. It's
Yeah, that stood out to me as well. That was, again, I wonder what these scripts that got turned in looked like, where cuts were made, and how quickly they were moving with this kind of stuff. Because that feels like someone chopped a few too many things out of there. Or like, so sometimes you'll see what will happen with scripts is someone will write the script and there will be a reference to something that happened earlier, and then you cut out the something earlier but you leave the reference in, so there's like a little hanging reference to nothing. So
Yeah.
that might be
It's
what's
also
going on
very
here.
possible that by this point they saw that the sales are not so good, so they're like, okay, we might be ending early, so let's put aside the budget that we were going to put on the show for a future project. So whatever you have now, finish it and be done with it.
That's true. Yeah. And that would explain the short run time as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A few more nitpicks in episode 2 as far as story and writing goes. At one point, Gali gets frozen and she says ice is still water, which brings a lot of weird
Yes.
world building implications of like, okay, so why do we have distinct 2 elements for this now? You're calling this out and I'm not hearing an answer. So that was fun. The other one was Liwa walking up to the door, reading what's on the door, and it's saying the instructions for someone to touch the door. And then he says out loud, someone touch the door. He's the one standing closest to it. My guy, you have hands.
Yeah.
I wonder what if they had already animated certain things and then had to retroactively.
I think the reason why they did that is because I was looking at some of the like concept art for Journey to One, and it has Tahu touching the door.
Okay.
And so I'm pretty sure what they did was, okay, Tahu has to be the one to touch the door, but we have to get him there somehow. So we'll have Lua tell someone to do it.
Yeah.
And then the last one, which again, more mind-boggling. They all put on their little backpack buddies. They walk down the stairs, and then Umarak pops in and is like, haha, I stole your backpack, runs downstairs. Meanwhile, everybody down there is like, oh, 6 creatures, 6 keys. We need Qatar. Which, by the way, they did not say we need Pohachu. At this point, they're fed up with him. They do not care if he walks down. They're like, he's what gets Qatar down here. We like little buddy Qatar. Screw Pohachu. And then Qatar does come down there on Umarak's back, and they disregard the whole 6 creatures, 6 keys thing. He just smashes the thing. What's the point? I don't get it. Set up stakes. Do something properly.
My thinking is that it's like they're doing things by the book, and he's just like, but yeah, there should have been a line or something of like,
it's the 6 of them in proximity versus them combining together.
Yeah.
Which is not really well explained. So I don't know.
But it's just like there's all these like stakes that they either set up and don't do anything with, or don't set up. Like the way the show starts, I'm like, okay, the Toa are going to get little creature dudes. Why? Why do I care? Like, are they defending somebody? Hard to say. Are they like what are the stakes? What
Yeah.
do we know that Makuta is really evil? We don't really, like, they tell us that, but we don't know.
Which I wonder, because Bionicle, the original Gen 1 Bionicle, had a major twist. Hero Factory also had a major twist that they didn't get to revealing, but was planned with a major twist. I was trying to figure out what is up with Ikimu and
Mhm.
Makuta. Was Ikimu knocking the mask off of Makuta entirely necessary? Because we're
Fair.
being told the story by Ikimu,
Yeah.
essentially, from his perspective. Is there something a little bit more or even is it like, because the way we're presented it, it's Cain and Abel, where
Right. Yeah. Very
Makuta
Cain-able.
is jealous of Ikimu. That's Ikimu's side of the story. What if there is something that he isn't telling us that doesn't absolve Makuta but makes things a little bit more complicated than we're being presented them?
Look, I'll be honest with you. I don't trust Akimu as far as I could throw him, and he's a little guy. I could throw him far, but he introduces himself as like, "Hey, I'm one of two of these legendary mask makers that made three cool masks, and then the replica of the same mask for every other person. All the Akotans have the same mask. You can't call yourself legendary and make four masks."
Oh,
Yeah, the
yeah.
big mystery that they all set up throughout the show is that the Toa have vague memories of Okota. It's like,
Hmm.
I remember something vaguely. It feels familiar, which would have led to the whole thing revealed, which we'll talk about next week, I believe. But
Yeah.
they don't go anywhere with that. It's just constant. Ooh, I have this vague memory of this thing. That's it.
Yeah.
So let's talk
Yeah.
about characters.
Yeah. I put Liwa first. He's the one who stood out most in the first episode to me.
That's fair. I think, okay, this is something that Gen 2 does completely different from Gen 1, is they make Liwa competent. He
Yeah.
was never competent, but in this show, he's like the one doing things. And I'm, actually kind of impressed.
Yeah.
Um, all of the characters obviously are meant to be, you know, reflecting what element they have. That's how it's to communicate their personality to kids early on through these stereotypes. So with Liwa being, you know, this like fun, charismatic, likes to play games kind of guy, it makes sense. Um, and obviously with him working from like the nature perspective, it makes sense that he's the first one that is like, oh, a cool little creature. I'll have fun with him and we'll be buddies. And I like him. He's my friend. But I also made this note of his dialogue. All of the dialogue is really weird. His
Yeah.
dialogue specifically has a lot of like contractions and shortenings, like saying ain't or like shortening running to runnin' or whatnot, which makes me wonder if they had initially planned him to be written with like uh, a southern accent of some kind, like he's the the hillbilly of the group.
The Louisiana
Um,
Bayou.
yeah, which could have been an interesting take. I'm not opposed to them adding accents, and I think it's uh, in many ways more interesting than and makes a little bit more sense than like his semi-Irish accent from the last generation. But they didn't go that route. It's whatever. Not deal breaker for me, but just kind of something I started noticing more and more. I was like, why is he saying ain't? And why is he saying ain't with like a, regular New York American accent. It's weird.
Yeah. Personally, I found him surprisingly a character that I didn't hate. By which I mean, usually when we have these like jokester characters, they're one of my least favorite type of characters. But I think because he's competent and because he immediately makes friends with his creature, often the jokester characters are framed in competition with the people around them.
Mm.
Like they kind of want to be the center of attention. And then you have the leader of the group who is the actual center of attention. And they're kind of like trying to take the leader down a peg. So yeah, I just really appreciated his characterization here. And he's probably, of the green characters we've seen, my favorite that we've seen thus far in any of these media.
Yeah. He's pretty solid overall. Like
he's
none
probably
of-
the most similar to Gen 1, him and Gali from this.
Yeah. Yeah, he's I don't know. He's none of the characters really get super deep. They're all pretty two-dimensional for the most
Yeah.
part.
Well, there's
with
no
the
time to be
exception
deep.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you say that, but I'm like
I think
one afternoon away
Pohatu-
from rewriting everything and just being like that I could do this. I'm not a professional writer by any stretch, but I could. But yeah, like with 6 characters it is hard to get deep with them. And so like I'm definitely not judging them for not going too far. But I do like the little moments that Liwa has. He's just fun, and he's mischievous without being annoying, which I do
Yeah.
appreciate.
Yeah, I think there's an inherent struggle with Bionicle, which is we have 6 main characters. You either need to zero in on one or two, or the focus is just kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
Here they kind of do a little bit of both. I wonder, since you bring up, John, did you bring up this idea that maybe they were not putting as much focus on this because they were already kind of thinking this was going to be canceled?
Yeah.
So yeah, if they had had more episodes, maybe we would have seen more. Or it could be a case like the Barbie Dreamhouse Adventures, where they keep threatening to have interesting character development and then don't. But yeah,
Fair.
anyway, that's as far as we've gotten in Dreamhouse Adventures. Who knows what happens in Barbie Dreamhouse Adventures? Go Team Roberts! Subscribe to the Patreon if you want to find out.
Coming at some point, or maybe it's
At
already
some
out.
point.
I don't know. Yeah.
We haven't recorded it yet, so we'll see when that happens. I think we're still
Yeah.
on Dreamhouse Adventures.
If you're listening from the future, go find out for yourself.
Yeah. Anyway, we also have Tahu, who I'm putting this high up because he's the leader, but he isn't the focus of these episodes.
Tahu kind of barely has a character. Like he was one of the ones that I was thinking about. Like I don't know how I would define him. Like similar to how Gali is normally just the girl character, this is just like the boy character, I guess.
Yeah.
He's not as much of a hothead as he used to be. They kind of gave that personality to Pohatu. So
yeah. It's very interesting. Like he's kind of the fun-loving jock of the group is how I would put it. Like he has that scene where he's like, "Oh, I can fly around. This is really fun." And then Anu is like, "Haha, get hit with a wall, idiot."
A wall that he definitely had time to turn away from. We'll talk about editing.
The wall took like 10 seconds to make, and Tahu's just like, maybe he was flying not sober, but he had reaction time.
Playing a game of chicken. It's like, that wall's gonna fudge first.
That honestly, that would be a good Tahu characterization of a little bit of a himbo.
Yeah.
Except they gave that to Kopaka.
Yeah. This was
No,
okay.
okay,
We'll
maybe
we'll
a little
get to
bit.
it. We'll get to it. But yeah, no, I agree. I feel. Yeah.
I think
Anyways,
Kopaka, the stated character traits are not the actual character traits. We'll put a pin in that.
yeah. Going on to the girl character, Golly. Um, she's pretty much the girl
Just-
character.
She's the
It's
same.
pretty
Yeah.
much the same.
Yeah. She's smart, she's friendly. She also pretty immediately bonds with her creature, though she has a little bit more hesitation.
She
than
doesn't go
we would.
ponder the deep thoughts, the great thoughts, but
That
yeah.
yeah, unfortunately. I will say she is a lot more in the previous series she was like a lot more motherly in some ways. And in this one she's more there's a lot more sibling energy amongst them, which I
Yeah.
like a lot. And I do feel like she is, the fact that she is also competitive and she's like, haha, I'm gonna race there faster than you guys, was actually pretty refreshing. It's good to see the girl characters being treated equally and as friends, and it was good.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, there is that thing that will pop up occasionally where like the girl character is like the one raining on everyone's parade. She's the like
Yeah.
practical one. The Susan from Narnia.
Yeah.
Who I like Susan in Narnia, but yeah, she has the tendency to be a little I relate very much to Susan in Narnia of like rolling my eyes at the dumb boys doing their dumb boy things.
Yeah.
But,
Versus
but that's
Golly
the
in
one
this one.
characterization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Golly in this one is like, hey, we should use our animal creatures to like just race. And they're like,
Yeah.
well, are we allowed to do that? And she's like, who's gonna tell them?
Yeah.
Like, who are we gonna get in trouble with? Ikimu? We don't even know if he makes that many masks. He's made 4 so far. He's not that legendary.
He's over in the city doing whatever he does when no one's around.
Yeah. Which raises a lot of questions now that I think about it. I'm just saying, I don't trust him.
Yeah. No, I think, I wonder if that's a little bit intentional.
maybe they're doing the same thing that they weren't able to do in Hero Factory with Mr. Makuta.
Yeah. Oh, are you aware of that twist, Toa?
No.
So there's the
twist?
character of Mr. Makura, who's the like proprietor of Hero Factory.
Oh, okay.
So the original plan was apparently to have the reveal that underneath Hero Factory, where did the villains come from? Well, underneath Hero Factory is a parallel villain factory, like upside down. And who runs it all? Mr. Makura. Not only that, swap the R in Makura for a T.
Whoa.
Mr. Makuta.
That's crazy.
Now, I don't know. This was like the initial plan when they were pitching the series. So I don't know how much would have actually made it into that final story if they had continued it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea of like the benevolent mentor figure is actually evil. Or maybe not even evil, but like not who he says he is. That is always a little bit of an interesting thing to explore.
Well, I mean, we already saw it in Bionicle 2 Legends of Metro Nui with the old wise man with a bird being the evil one.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, maybe we need to look deeper. I say as if there's things to look deeper into besides these 4 episodes and a prologue.
Yeah.
Anyways, moving on to our himbo of the group. Okay, so I wrote they made him a himbo because Kopaka is the one asking the stupidest questions in the show frequently. And he'll say something ridiculous and be like, wait, right? And I'll be like, nobody else questions themselves. And I appreciate that of you, Kopaka, because everybody else is also saying insane stuff. But you're at least being like, wait, that might be stupid. That might just be a little stupid. Um he's he's not really what his description says.
No.
Um
They're like, he's smart, but he can be a little bit cold.
He's way too
Really?
similar to Tahu.
Yeah.
He's no longer the Batman that we knew.
Yeah, they really gave all of Tahu and Kopaka's character traits to Pohachu.
Actually,
They're like,
they gave Kopaka should be the one doing like the translations of things instead of Gali. Kopaka should be the nerd. And
yeah, I
Tahu
would
should be
okay
the
with that.
jock.
They really don't have like a nerd character in this,
Gali,
I guess. But even Liwa was doing some of the translations at one point
yeah.
with the door. Yeah, I don't know. Kopaka was just kind of like, to be fair, this is an upgrade from the little like web series. His whole character arc in the web series was I slip
didn't
a lot
slip.
on ice.
He's clumsy. He's the Bella Swan.
Yeah. Or you know, they have the whole Tahu Kopaka, I'm fired, you're ice, we fight in that. I'm glad they didn't have that in the show. I'll be honest, we
Yeah.
see that too often. But yeah, he really is just the more himbo version of Tahu. I don't know how to feel about it.
Yeah. Again, he should be the nerd. Tahu should be the himbo.
Yeah.
Speaking of himbo, we have Onua.
I
He's
love
the
Onu
like
in the
gentle
show,
giant.
actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the one who, like, while Pohaku is being stubborn and bigoted and leaving Qatar behind, he's the one who is like, "Hey, Qatar, I will carry you.
Yeah.
Hop on my arm, I guess, because he already has his one on the back."
That's true. Yeah. I do like Onu in this one. I like that, like, oftentimes when they make big, strong characters, they make them dumb. And in this one, they're like, no, he's reflecting his element. He's slow moving, but because of that, he thinks a lot of things through a lot more.
Yeah.
He actually is the smart character. He's not really the nerd, but he is the smart character of, or I guess wise would be the word that I use with him. I don't know. I actually like him a lot more. I think his personality is a lot easier to nail down than Gen 1. They do a
Yeah.
lot with Onua in general in this series, with like bringing purple into his color palette and giving him claws, and eventually in this series a hammer. I think was a good touch for him. Mostly, in my opinion, upgrades for Onua. Although I will always miss his chainsaw Earthbreaker things. Those were cool.
Yeah.
Claws.
Yeah. I of these, like, because he doesn't get a ton of focus, but he stood out to me nonetheless because of he just has such a different presence than everyone else.
Yeah. I like it because like
Yeah.
the Toho were always meant to be basically the same age.
Yeah.
And I think they do a good job in this of feeling like, oh yeah, these guys are all about the same age, but Onua is just a little bit more mature for his age.
Yeah.
And I like that.
Any thoughts on Onua, John?
I like him. He's kind. He's whatever. Move on.
Yeah.
Fair.
The character who gets the most of an arc here is Pohatu, who starts out, yeah, he's stubborn and he's prejudiced, as we've been saying. Which, yeah, again, I just like that we have, here's this character, here is what defines them. These are things that we think of inherently as negative. We have to see how he can grow beyond these things. And maybe later, if the show does good with characterization, maybe there's some strength to that as well as the weakness. Anything where it's like the biggest strength is also the biggest weakness. That is so interesting to me, as like, because I think that's often true in real
Yeah.
life. So when that's a character conceit, I think that's so interesting. Here we're only seeing the negative side of this, which again, yeah, I don't think we've had a Toa character have this big of a flaw that isn't like Vakama in Web of Shadows, who is literally turning evil.
Yeah. I mean, we see a little bit of this with Oniwa in Legends of Metro Nui, where he's kind of racist to start with, and in
Yeah.
the end, he's kind of okay. And in this one, he's just racist towards scorpions, but it's still kind of a similar vibe.
Yeah. I got the sense when, because his first line gives the sense that he's very like stubborn and stuck in his ways. So I think it's manifesting as a hatred for the scorpion, but I think it goes a little bit deeper than that.
Yeah.
At least that was my read on it. And yeah, I don't know. It makes for a simple yet, I mean, that arc of like character has a bad trait that they have to overcome is like very, very simple, but it works. That's why they do it over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just like that they are willing to be like, hey, no, he is in the wrong. He is very much in the wrong. We are not going to point out directly to you that he is in the wrong in the way that you might otherwise. We're going to let the audience understand that what he is doing is wrong. Because even the other Toa are kind of like, okay, if you aren't gonna like put your little buddy on your back, like I guess that's fine. But if it becomes a
Yeah.
problem, don't keep doing it.
Yeah.
But it's a bigger problem than they're telling you it is.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing because, like, on the one hand, it's like they're all kind of being pretty respectful in the sense that it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, if you guys don't want to be backpacking together, that's fine. And I do think in general that's a good thing for a children's show to have because
Yeah.
it reinforces ideas about consent early on. But it's also like they let Pohachu come to that realization on his own. And I
Yeah.
think they all probably realize that, okay, he does like Katara a little bit more than he's letting on, but he's stubborn. And so he's not going to show that change until something critical happens.
Yeah.
So I thought it was actually pretty good.
I think the resolution of the arc is where it suffers a bit, where
Yeah.
it feels very sudden when he goes from, I don't like you, Qatar, get away from me unless we absolutely need to do something. And then Umarak steals Qatar, and then he runs away, and Pohatu follows him. And it's the classic Spider-Man choice of there's the bus full of children, or MJ, who are you gonna save?
Yeah.
And here
Both.
this is. Yeah. In Spider-Man, it's always, I'll save both. Here it is an actual choice that he does have to make, and he goes for Qatar. And I'm like, I don't buy that you have had the character development at this point to make that decision.
Yeah.
There's
On
not
top of
enough
the fact
time.
that this was a very like telly and not showy situation where it's
Yeah.
like you're a Toa of stone and he's about to be dropped off of a stone cliff. Are you not creative enough to just like make the like part of the rock scoop him up and pick him up?
Apparently, he needs. No, he doesn't actually need to be combined with the guy because he beat the crap out of him the last time. Never mind.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then like the first time they show him like looking at the mask, he looks like really close, like he's about to bend down and pick up the mask. And then in the next shot, he's like 10 feet away. So I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
you could have maybe picked up the mask and gotten Qatar at the same time. But whatever.
Yeah. I appreciate that they make that an actual choice. I just think
Hmm.
you almost need a scene of Umarak has stolen Qatar and is down. You could extend the scene of Qatar or of Umarak stealing the thing. Make it a little bit less he runs in, smashes it and runs. Make
Yeah.
that an actual fight. And then meanwhile you cut up to Pohatu, who is like, I've messed everything up.
Hmm.
I've done something wrong. Just talking himself through things, being like, I need to do better.
Yeah. Well,
It's a simple, very, very like, it's an ugly solution, but it's a solution to something that doesn't quite work.
yeah. It was also something for me watching through this. I'm like, Umarak goes in and steals the mask. And I
Yeah.
get that the whole time he's been like stalking them, and like that's cool. That plays into him being a hunter, and I like him as an enemy. But he takes the mask, and then to go away with the mask rather than using his shadow travel powers that he's been using and has been so menacing, he just jumps away. Arguably flies, which was weird. But no. He could he goes through all of that. He finally gets the mask again, and he does like the little like mime escalator into
Walks
the
down.
ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks so weird.
And I was like, you couldn't have just done that earlier. You were in like a cavern. There's shadows everywhere, dude.
Maybe he can't do it when he has Qatar with him on his back.
He could have just
Uh,
ditched Qatar then. Just I don't know.
Yeah.
It was just weird.
Yeah. I think that's very much an example of like narrative contrivance to just kind of we need things to happen for the plot.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It it I do agree with you. It would have made more sense if it was like Poachu realized he messes up and he's like, okay, I gotta go after them. Even if I can't get the mask, I gotta get Qatar back.
yeah.
And maybe that's the resolution. But this resolution was just it didn't feel natural. It was just they
Yeah.
had to get from point A to point B, and I guess this is how they did it.
Yeah.
Also, they took away his Australian accent, which I thought was cool. I thought it was a fun little character thing of like, oh, he's serious because he's been in Australia, and he hates scorpions because he's been in Australia, and it's like, I love it. I understand it. I know that they're trying to go with like a Mesoamerican vibe, and having an Australian accent in there would be weird. But they had an Irish accent with
Yeah.
Polynesian vibes. They could do
maybe they're
it.
starting to be more culturally sensitive with the accents at this point. It's like, we don't have an Australian
So
actor at this
this is
point.
something which is what Monster High did, where they had the character of Laguna Blue, who was Australian, played
Hmm.
by an American or Canadian actor. I forget which
Canadian.
one. And
Canadian.
then someone in management found out, and they made them recast the actor.
I kind of respect that, actually. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. I think though this is a case of like, if you're trying to be culturally sensitive, you kind of have to go all the way.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you can't
I
just
mean,
kind of, because it's still, these characters still have accents. They're just accents that sound more default to people from the US.
yeah. The, we'll get more into this with the audio, but
Yeah.
I think having an accent would be nice because all of their voices kind of ended up sounding the same
Yeah.
Oh
through the
yeah.
filtering. I in that sense, I wish they did a little bit more with the difference in the voices, but I'm sure the actors going into it didn't know that that's what they were going to do to their voices.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't blame them. It's just I missed the Australian accent. Maybe
Yeah.
he lost it when he lost his boomerangs.
Maybe.
Maybe that's their true power.
I mean, I've never picked up a boomerang, so I don't know what
You know,
happens.
you're missing out. You could be Australian and you just don't know
Yeah.
yet.
I just watched Furiosa, which is a very
Oh yeah,
Australian movie, so that's on my mind.
fair.
Do you just like you pick up the boomerang and suddenly you're in the wasteland surrounded by random Australian character actors in the weirdest costumes you've ever seen?
Yeah.
Anyway, go and see Furiosa. It is not doing well at the box office. We don't get a ton of listeners, but if everyone goes and sees it, they'll boost box office a tiny bit.
Yeah, I'm sure by the time this releases, there's going to be 1 week left to go see it, so go check it out.
Yeah. Actually, do check it out while it's in theaters if you're gonna see it, because it is a spectacle. But yeah, anyway, Ikimu, he's a little sus.
He's
I like his
he's
mask, and
annoying.
that's about it.
Yeah,
He does have a cool mask. Like the Mask of Creation is something that was in original Gen 1. It was never depicted. We never saw drawings. We never saw anything about it. So they made an actual version of this mask, and it is a cool mask.
Yeah.
I got the like little Akimu set that comes with the golden mask on its little pedestal. I love it. It's a really cool looking set. I like that they have the little like lettering on it.
Yeah.
They do a good job with all the lettering in the show.
Very nice.
But that's the only like redeeming quality of him. He's not super consistent. He's very like mysterious, but also maybe just a dude. Like
yeah.
I don't know.
He's being set up as like this universe's version of Mata Nui, but has like is an actual character within this, which he doesn't need to be. Like
Mhm.
none of the information he tells any of the Toa, they see the vision of the maze themselves. They're like, hey, we saw this vision. He's like, okay, go there.
He's also like, I don't know anything about anything. It's like,
Yeah.
what? Mazes? I don't remember
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. It's like he could, I think they're trying to like do the, with Matanui, he's like a presence that is off somewhere nebulously. You don't understand who he is until he actually becomes manifest in the story. But yeah, he's just kind of like this vague eventual goal.
Mhm.
Usually with mentor characters, you have the opposite side of this thing of like, oh no, they're very present. They're leading the team. Professor X, they're, psychically connected with everyone, telling
Mhm.
them what to do. Like, imagine if Gali is like, hey, we're going to use our creatures to do the race across the water. And Akimu's like, no, don't do that. You're wasting your powers. And they're like, no, we're going to do it anyway because we're rebels.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
Akimu just sends them away and then does nothing.
Yeah, he's just chilling. He's like, "Oh, I guess I'm awake for the first time in a few years. I'll have."
Apparently, he
coffee.
did something to help rebuild the village, but like I couldn't tell
Yeah.
at all.
He's
Yeah.
a quest giver in NPC in a video game, but one of those video games where you have to go back and talk to him between each step of the quest.
Right. Yeah.
He does make like the new armor for the Toa after they
Oh,
were
yeah.
concussed. And then he's like, all right, I've done enough work. This is like more work than I've ever done in my entire life. I'm going to take a break now.
Yeah.
6 masks? Whoa, that's too much.
Oh, that's a lot.
that is what would that be, like 120% of the masks that I've designed before?
Yeah. Oh, goodness. Yeah,
No,
I
it would
don't
be
know.
150% of the masks he's designed
Oh, that's
before if he's
true.
only designed 4 masks.
He's like working on like the first one. He's like, can I just make like this same one 5 more times? Surely they won't know. They're concussed. I'll just be like, they've always looked the same. What do you mean? I'll gaslight him.
Gaslight gatekeep girl boss. That's the Kimu.
That's a Kimu.
Honestly,
Yeah.
that would be so much more interesting if that was the direction that they were taking this character.
I agree. Instead, he's like they almost tried to make him either Taraga Vakama or Likan and Matanui and
Yeah.
failed at all of them. Like he's just there. Like in a lot of ways, the like Protector of Fire and prologue episode was more of a character than Akimu. And that is rough to say out loud.
Yeah.
I don't know. He just exists. He is a cool set.
Yeah.
That's all I got for him.
Yeah.
Now for our villain here, we have Umarak.
Umarak.
Yeah.
He uses antlers in all of his decorating. He's a regular
Mhm.
Gaston.
He's like the
Mhm.
fancy version of the school warriors. That's like, oh, that's what they want to be, a person with
Yeah.
color and style.
I just think
He's
he's cool.
He's a
So
cool set, and he's got cool powers.
I was rooting for him. I was like, I hope
Yeah,
you
me
do
too.
you do
I
well.
I don't particularly care for the villains from Gen 2 because I don't really know. They just kind of show up. Like there was so much of an emphasis in Gen 1 where it's like, okay, Arahi, they're these animals that were corrupted. Oh, the Borok, they're these swarms that were hidden in the thing. Here it's like, okay, there's a spider. Go check it out. Then these skull people show up. Where are they from? What's their deal? I don't know. Then
They were
Umarok shows up.
probably dead. Yeah, I don't know.
Is he part of some sort of league of hunters? I don't know, but he's just there. So
Yeah,
I
He
just
uses
don't really
shadows.
care for them. He uses shadows, but like, is there a shadow league? A shadow force? I don't know. He's just there.
He has
there's
antlers.
a shadow realm, if that helps.
I guess.
He is
He-
working for Makuta, but not aligned with Makuta, but then he gets possessed by Makuta, so I guess the distinction doesn't really matter in the long run.
Yeah.
I think he's in this story more compelling than Makuta
Yeah.
because Makuta is just kind of like a nebulous evil versus this guy that's just kind of like, oh, like I'm a mercenary for hire that is more cunning and has a lot more experience than these Toa. And I might not be able to beat them in a fight, but I can outsmart them.
Yeah. I
Um,
love that he's like, I need to identify their weakness.
mhm.
And he attacks them, but he's not actually doing much. He is up in the shadows, just kind of like watching them.
Yeah,
That is such a cool way to like have your villain interacting with your heroes, to be like, he's just figuring them out. Like
yeah,
like he's a hunter. He's identifying the weaknesses that he can exploit later.
yeah. I do like his power set. Like the shadow travel is already like it's always going to be a
Yeah.
cool power, but he also can like shoot enemies out of his gun. Like he compresses them
Yeah.
into a bullet and then they appear, and that's cool. It's one of those power sets that I'm like, that would be really cool if it was more defined. Like, what
Yeah.
if you compressed one of the Toa into a shot and like
Oh.
shot him off a cliff? I don't know. Could be interesting. But I think it was more of we need a way for a bunch of enemies to show up all at the same time. So let's make it when he shoots his gun, they appear.
Yeah.
That'll
Yeah.
work.
What if he
We-
was like more in tune with the forest, of like he can summon the creatures to attack them?
Maybe. I mean, he can do
That would be
shadow
fun.
traveling. He made
Or that.
the things disappear, so we know that it can work on other people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's not as fun when it's like 6 heroes against 1 villain. So that like they usually always have like 6 on 6, but when it's 6 on 1, it's like, okay, it's not as interesting. It's cheaper that way just to make
I'm-
1 villain, but
Yeah, I'm okay with it being one villain. I will admit though, like the first year for Gen 2, they at least had 6 villains. The second year they don't. I might be doing my math wrong. But they kind of cheaped out on the villains for the final year, which I'm sure it was more of a budgetary thing. But we'll get to that in season 2. But it's a little depressing.
Yeah.
even more depressing about the set that they didn't release. But we'll get about that next time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The characters, my biggest thing is more than anything, and this kind of comes up with the characters, is the dialogue is just so bad. Oftentimes it is this character does something, and then another character goes, look, this character did something. And it's like, okay, you've now wasted my time because I've seen the same thing twice. I saw it and then I heard it. I don't need that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is editing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, the dialogue is not great. It is not helped by the way the lines are paced out in such a way that
Mhm.
every dialogue scene feels like everyone is taking too long to react to what the person before them said.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree that like stronger dialogue writing would help the characters, especially the characters we don't get a lot of focus on.
Yeah. Everything is just kind of like a lot of fluff
Yeah.
where I feel like Bionicle Generation 1 did not have too much fluff in the same way. And that was in some ways to its own detriment. Like we didn't see a lot of good characterization in Mask of Light aside from our two little Matoran friends. Um and we did see some good, like I liked the race scene in this. We got to see how they problem solve and they use their
Yeah.
powers in certain ways and how they interact with each other. Um, but that's, one scene out of many that was good, and everything else seemed to just be a lot of any character could have said this line and any character could have reacted to this line, and not a lot is actually happening.
I
Um,
I wonder if, because John and I talked about this with Hero Factory, where Bionicle Gen 1, they're going a year or two at a time with the
yeah,
story. They don't know how much longer this is going to last. With Hero Factory, when they start out, they're like, okay, we didn't plan much ahead in Bionicle, and that led to issues. So we're going to plan. I think they planned what was probably a 5 to 6 year arc. And then they made it 4 years in and it got canceled.
yeah,
So I think here they're like, okay, let's not plan that far in advance, but we need to do more than 1 year. So they're like, oh, let's plan a 3 year arc. But then you end up, what are you doing those first 2 years to get to
yeah,
the end of that arc? And I think there's a lot of plate spinning.
yeah. Well, and the thing is, the original Bionicle series did kind of have uh, a long term arc that I think they were planning on finishing within that 2 to 3 year time gap of,
Yeah.
okay, we're awakening Matanui, and it turns out he's a giant robot, and that's where we are going to live inside. But they did it in more of a clever way where like the reveal was important to the story. They were always
Yeah.
building towards it. Versus this where it was just kind of like we don't I don't know what they're building towards. I know that
Yeah.
Makuda's evil and apparently he's coming back, but that's kind of just a maybe on if he's coming back or not because things need to happen for him to come back. And the heroes are here, but it's not clear as to why they necessarily need the heroes to be there yet, except to fight off some of the like spiders, I guess.
Yeah. Which is the issue with Hero Factory as well, where they don't have a direction in the short term. They
Mm,
have like an overarching, here's the twist we're building towards. And we don't know if that's the case with Bionicle Gen 2. I kind of suspect that they have some kind of twist, be it Akimu's evil or Akimu isn't who he says he is, or could be something completely different. Could be like, oh, this is another giant robot that we're on.
hmm.
But anyway, they're building towards something, but they aren't. Yeah, as you're saying, there's no momentum to it. There's no trajectory. We don't know what the destination is going to be, even in like a abstract sense.
We kind
Yeah.
of do, and we'll talk more about this next week. But yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, but even like I don't know what the stakes are for them because
Yeah.
no,
like all the Akotans don't have names. We have Protector of Fire as the most named Akotan, aside
They
from Akimu and Makuta.
they aren't even like present
Hmm.
in the show outside of like the campfire scene and maybe in the background of the city.
Yeah,
But I can't actually remember seeing any of them in the background of the city, so I'm not even sure if they're there. Oh no, I remember one because it
they
looked
probably
like it was a background gag that they were doing, like, oh, there's something funny going on in the back that if you pay enough attention, you'll see happening. But it wasn't
yeah
funny, so it was
yeah
just doing business in the back. Um,
they they bring him up in season 2 a little bit more, but
okay,
they're just kind of there, and it's
yeah,
such a disappointment. Like I know they didn't want to overload us with, you know, hundreds of new characters with individual names, but um, it's a bummer to not see a few with names. Like
yeah.
Right.
I don't know,
It's
just the fact,
ostensibly a show. We should
yeah,
have time to introduce some of these characters.
like
Yeah,
if the main objective is to defeat evil before it can destroy life, let me know what they're protecting. Let me
yeah.
get attached to, like, in the web miniseries, specifically there's a very like small like baby Akotan.
Mm,
It's like, let me know what his name is. If
yeah.
it's like Gary, like I want them to protect Gary, man. But I don't
Maybe
care
they're
about
all
Protector
maybe
of
all their
Fire.
names is Protector. That's just
Yeah,
their name.
no, that's so rough. Uh, so yeah, I just don't know. There's just not any stakes for what's going on. I don't have a frame of reference for like this is the evil that needs to be defeated or these are the people that need to be protected. It's just like, okay, this guy is a bad guy, but we haven't really seen him do anything all that evil yet, so I don't know. He's evil because I say he's evil.
Yeah. Which again,
Yeah.
if they had been building to that reveal, that would have been an awesome reveal. But it doesn't matter if the building material you're using to get to that reveal is bad building material. It can't support the
Mhm.
reveal no matter how cool the reveal is. If you don't care about the world and this character and these characters, it doesn't matter what the twist is. It's not gonna save the storyline. I mean, maybe it will, but you're gonna get
Yeah.
canceled before you get to it. That's what happened to Hero Factory. That's apparently what's happening to Bionicle Gen 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gave the characters a 3 out of 5. Again, I understand who these characters are. Some not as well as others, but I appreciate that. But also, I'm not blown away by all of that much going on. Um, I like Liwa. I think Pohatu's arc is interesting. I think Umarak is cool. Rooting for him.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
about it.
I continue to give it a harsh one. There's not really one character that just stands out as one that I love. They're just all inferior.
Fair enough. I gave it a 1.5, and my main reasoning is because I'm grouping in the character writing with it. Just the dialogue is so bad. It takes me out of the story so much. And if they just like took out half the dialogue and just showed people doing things, I think it would be easier to process what's going on. But they
Yeah.
do something and then they explain that thing and my brain just goes numb. Um So I don't know. I gave it that 1.5. It's not terrible. I like Pohachu's arc. I like Umrak enough, but it's just everything else that just drags it down.
Yeah. Oh yeah, speaking of things that you can actually see, the visuals.
Hmm.
The visuals are interesting to me.
Yeah.
I
It's
really like the 2D shorts, the websodes that they came out.
interesting. Okay.
It I like the art aesthetic that when they brought
Yeah.
it to the show, like they had the same aesthetic of like the backgrounds, but the character models are all 3D. and they never quite seem to just fit into that world for me. It's just always off. Like I understand the idea. It's an interesting concept, but like the impacts are 2D. You have that scene with Umarak and Makuta as a smoke, 2D smoke versus a 3D figure, and it just doesn't look right. I just don't love it. And the models themselves don't really seem to fit all that much. They're not all that interesting, unfortunately.
Yeah, so it's weird. They definitely used what I think of as like the cheap animation uh style of um I guess like 2010s, like you need to make a robot character so he's gonna look like this kind of thing. We see it a lot with like Transformers and stuff especially,
Yeah.
but um with this one I liked the direction that they were trying to go with it, look like trying to look like it's 2D and like painted, um similar to I like they were trying to do what Arcane did well,
Yeah.
um with trying to look like, oh, this is in the medium, or Into the Spider Verse for another example, this is
Or
within the medium.
Barbie Dreamtopia.
Yeah, the other one that I was thinking of too. Mhm. But yeah, like they tried to be like, okay, this is like in the comics, this is comics come to life. Um, but they had three different mediums that I noticed frequently, where it's the background, which is like this beautiful painted, like concept art landscape. They have the characters, which are um, like all the textures on them look painted, but they didn't do all that much with shaders to make the light look like it was also 2D. So we have very clearly 3D looking characters with 2D textures. Um, and then for all of the elemental effects, which I love the elemental effects, but it's another form of media that looks so different from everything else that like you can tell the textures, like all the elemental effects were drawn for that specific scene. It's not 3D. It is very much, somebody with a stylus drawing each frame. Um, and it looks beautiful for that reason, but it doesn't fit together. So like if they had gone with just like two of them, it would have been fine. But they kind of mixed too many of them together. And especially, I think the one change that I think would have fixed it is all of the characters have like these bold outlines to them, but the backgrounds don't, and the elemental effects don't. If they had just removed the border on them, I think it would have been like at least 20% better.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
I don't know.
For me, I liked the style of everything. It looks so distinct from anything we've seen in Bionicle before. Yeah,
Yeah.
as you were saying, the painted textures really worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think the biggest thing that stood out to me was the animation itself, the movement. Um, it feels very video game cutscene y, and not necessarily good video game cutscene. Um, where there's just something a little stiff, a little awkward, and then the timing of everything is so off. A lot of it
Yeah.
is just like basic editing of like, okay, that shot started half a second too early. Um, and that's tough to do. Like I've done some editing work for like school projects, and it's very instinctual. You just kind of have to feel out what feels natural. And this is just like consistently shots are like half a second too long. You have that scene
Yeah.
where Tahu flies into the wall, and it's like the wall pops up, then you have a second, and then you cut to Tahu. There's a second. Tahu reacts to the wall. There's another second. Tahu hits the wall.
Yeah.
It's just like too much space between things, and it's consistent through everything. It's consistent in the dialogue scenes in a way that makes all of the dialogue scenes sound incredibly unnatural. It's consistent in all of the action scenes. All of the action looks very unnatural. Where each individual element would look well if it were timed better. And I don't know
Yeah.
what went wrong here. If it's
I
just an editor did it wasn't, because these episodes are like hitting a specific runtime. I wonder if they're just like filling out time or if it is some deeper issue.
well, part of it with the action that I noticed is they kind of have a mild case of Power Ranger syndrome where everything is very much like overacted
Yeah.
because they have to act with their bodies. This is the first Bionicle uh, media where, like, as far as like animated storytelling, where they don't have mouths. They're not using some sort of mouth. They're not. It's not their mask cuts away to having a mouth. It is just their masks, which
Yeah.
for me I love. They use like eye movements really well, and like flashes. But oops, sorry, microphone. It flashes behind the mask to indicate when they're talking and when they're not, and I think that works out pretty well. But it does mean that they've put more effort into the movements of their characters to try and over exaggerate. Oh, this is the emotion, or this is the thing that I'm doing, and I think that's okay. But with that mixed with the pacing and all of the other frustrations, it just feels unnatural in the long term.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. There are a lot of good things about the visuals in this, but there's so many things that feel like it's just dragging it down. That it's really hard to praise the visuals, even though like I like if you take individual aspects of it, I like the character designs. I like how
Yeah.
they've translated uh, the visuals to look almost identical to the sets. But admittedly, they have some improvements to the sets, like armor going all the way around the arm. I love that. But and I love the landscape shots. The landscape shots
Yeah.
look like a lot like the concept art. Which, if you look at the concept art for Bionicle G2, it looks great.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, there's an
Um,
art book that is available on the Biomedia project that, yeah, it looks phenomenal.
yeah. So like, it, different parts of this show do look really good, and I can
Yeah.
understand why they went with a bit of a mix in certain things. You know, it's a lot easier to make a 2D background than it is to create a full 3D background that you're only going to use for 20 seconds. And it's a lot easier to make 3D characters that you're going to use for a whole series than animate 2D for the whole time. But they just didn't quite blend them well enough.
Yeah. Yeah, it's for me, I didn't notice the lack of blending quite as much, but yeah, there's just something off about the timing. And I guess, yeah, I did notice the lack of blending when like characters are interacting with more than just what's directly around them. Um yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's too bad because, yeah, as you're saying, like the character models look good and the backgrounds look good, so there is something there. There is
Yeah.
actual effort and artistry here. It's just not, something in the process is blocking it from being its full potential.
Yeah. It feels rushed, I guess. Like
Yeah.
if they had give them like another year to smooth things out and it would have looked amazing. But obviously they didn't have another year.
Yeah. They
This
canceled it like after this show.
Like three
yeah.
months after the first season, they canceled it,
Yeah.
and then they released the
So
second part and was like, "Oh, this
Yeah.
is
yeah.
over."
uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I give the visuals a 3 out of 5.
Um,
I I give it a 2. It's really the 3D models that just are so distracting the entire time. I really want to appreciate the 2D backgrounds. I think they're the best part. But then those
Hmm.
3D models just they don't fit. They don't belong to that world and it just ruins the entire illusion for me. So it's a 2. It was jarring back then and it's jarring today.
Yeah, it's I gave it a, what did I give it, a 3.25 because I was being really nitpicky. Where like I think if you're just looking like side by side with, Bionicle 1 and uh this, like, this is able to do a lot more visually than Bionicle 1 could do with, just the technology of the time. But Bionicle any of the Bionicle movies do a lot better of just being consistent. And I think that ends up being more important in the long run because I'm not constantly taken aback by, okay, why does this look so bizarre? Why do the foreground characters look so different from the background anything? Um, so I I don't think it's terrible. I think they just needed a little bit more time to cook. So it's above average is how I put it, but it's not amazing.
Yeah. Now, on to the performances. I don't have a ton to say about the individual performances. I think they're all good. I could not tell you much about any of these performances, except for I think Michael Strickland as Umarok is doing a good job as the villain. I hinted some or I detected a little bit of like Mark Hamill in his voice,
A
which was
little
kind of
bit.
fun.
Mm, yeah.
Um, the problem, once again, the timing is just slightly off in a way that does not help the performances sound good. And then there's just this like vocal filter that they put on everyone to make them sound more robotic. And it is they went a little bit too far with that.
They make everyone sound so similar, and it could be
Yeah.
a thing where they had a bunch of similar sounding guys, but with that filter especially, it's like I couldn't tell who was who. Um, I didn't quite get much of like distinct personalities from each voice, even thinking about the filter. Without the filter, it's like, oh, they probably sound just like generic voices and not this character is very thick on this type of personality, like the Canadians like to do. But um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
it's they do their job fine enough, but the technical aspects and maybe the direction just don't help them.
Yeah, I don't know. Everything in this show is a little bit too campy for me. Is
Okay.
a bit too over exaggerated, is a bit too it feels like even though their target demographic was supposed to be 8-year-olds, this feels like they were targeting 4 to 6-year-olds in my mind.
Yeah, a
Where
little bit.
yeah, where I just feel like all their performances, for the most part, make me feel like I'm being kind of talked down to rather than the story just being told. And I don't necessarily know if it's the fault of the performers in that. There's a lot of other issues that we've already gone over. And I think the vocal distortion especially makes for an issue. Like we've had a little bit of vocal distortion with previous Bionicle media, but it's never been so bad to make me feel like, oh, this is a barrier between me and the character. Like, even though Takua, I think, is the one that has the most, besides maybe Makuta, in the first movie, it was still like, oh, that's a biomechanical being. Like that thing has vocal cords. This one, this series in general, not so much on the bio side. Uh,
Yeah.
It feels like everything is a robot, is mechanical. And I think that takes away a little bit from the mystique of the show. So
Yeah. And it just doesn't sound good.
yeah, Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I gave the performances again not for the work that the voice actors did, but for the timing and the vocal distortion that they put on these performances. I gave the I gave it a 2.5 out of 5.
So I'm not counting the editing, the post editing on the voices. I'm only reading the performances. The vocal filter I'm including to the sound portion of my rating. So,
Okay.
based
Yeah.
upon just performances, I gave it a 3.
Yeah, I gave it a 2.5. It wasn't bad, but I wouldn't necessarily classify it as particularly good either. Nothing really stood out to me.
So yeah, last up we have sound. Again, timing of everything is just off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The
Yeah.
sound really hurts this a lot, like even more than just the story. Because if it was just a bad story, okay, sure. But with the distracting metallic filter they put in the voices, where I can't really tell who's who, they're all very similar. It puts a barrier between me and the characters, and I just can't really uh, interact with them or just really be invested with them because there's that barrier. And so that really brings this another step down than what was already down to the way it was. So, yeah.
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 I will say, as far as sound goes, I think the sound effects that they do are pretty solid.
Yeah.
Um, they have one of my favorite things about this series is the little creature guys because they made them really like individual and unique.
Yeah.
Um, and while like the one thing that maybe I would fix is I don't think it makes sense for all of them to be backpacks. It would be cooler if, maybe one was like mounted on your arm and turned into a weapon or one was a shield. Because legitimately most of the ones that are backpacks end up being wings of some kind
Yeah.
and they're objectively cooler looking than the ones that aren't wings. But that's my only nitpick on them. I love the little creature dudes and all the little creatures move and behave differently, and especially with the green one that's like a little insect. Great sound design on that. I loved that. I loved the sound effects. I think on that side alone, I appreciated it quite a bit. They did a good job. It's just kind of the rest of the sounds, and unfortunately,
Yeah.
yeah, the speaking, the dialogue filters made everything worse. Um, and I wonder if they put that filter on because they didn't have the moving mouths. And so they thought, okay,
Yeah.
we need to have something so that it doesn't feel weird when they're talking through masks. And you can tell, like, okay, their face is behind the mask, but there's something in the way. But it just didn't work in the end.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be curious to know what the decision process behind that was.
It was probably like, huh, what does a robot sound like? A little bit
Yeah.
metallic, huh? Oh, they're wearing masks, or their voice box is like behind something. So let's put that little muffle there, and then it just hid the performance. So
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
also we haven't talked about the music yet, but
it's
the
there.
music has some good moments, but overall it sounds very like video gamey and not like the good kind of video game music, but the kind that like you're stuck on a puzzle in a Lego game and it's repeating the same track over and over again and you're going a little bit insane and the puzzle you can't it isn't helping you solve the puzzle.
Yeah. I think the big reason why that is I'm looking at it. The soundtrack only has 6 scores. So I think they just kind of rotate between those scores
Yeah.
to create the soundtrack for the episode. I personally don't really have an issue with the soundtrack. I think it sounds fine for what it does. I've been listening to it on repeat for this whole time, and I think it's just kind of generic. I love
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
intro one because they use like
Yes.
pan flute and like that kind of stuff. Great. Adds to the whole Mesoamerican vibe. Love that. But otherwise, it's just kind of generic. It's just
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. I don't have much beef with the music, except that a few times I was like, okay, I feel like I'm playing a video game. In addition to the animation looking kind of video gamey, and I was not at all surprised to find out that this studio does a lot of video game work. Because this all feels very video gamey in its approach to things. I was
Yeah.
like the a lot of the scenes feel like video game cutscenes.
Yeah. I'll agree with you there. In a lot of ways, it would have been better, I think, if it was just a video game, because at least there would be interesting bits in between these cutscenes.
Yeah. Honestly, conspiracy theory time. What if that was like Lego was like, "Oh, we're not sure if we're going to do a video game or a show. Let's get this video game design and cinematic studio to do that, and then we'll kind of decide."
Yeah,
Because
maybe.
you could see this. Lego has done this before with like their Lego movie video games, where they just use the movie as the cutscenes.
Right. Yeah.
I could see them taking that approach here, and it would probably work better as an experience. Although often the Lego games don't have like very compelling gameplay, but in
Right.
theory it would work a little bit smoother. Yeah, I
Mhm.
gave the
Yeah.
sound a 2.5 out of 5. I'm not super impressed. There's some stuff that works. Yeah, the intro song is great. It's kind of going for that Lord of the Rings vibe. It doesn't quite get there, but yeah,
Mhm.
everything else is very generic.
Yeah, I also give it a 2.5.
Yeah. I think in general, the sound design I didn't have issue with, but the voice filter on it made me drop down to that 2.5, where there's no part of this that I'm like, this is amazing. I want to listen to it later. The soundtrack
Yeah,
is fine. And it looks like no copyright studio wants to claim it, so that's kind of nice to know. I might use that later. But it's just the audio filters drop everything so much for me that I was like, yeah, 2.5
yeah.
is where I'm landing here.
Well, yeah, that leaves my final score as a 14 out of 25, which is a 56% or a 2.8 5-star rating.
Yeah, mine ended up being 11.25 as the total, which is like a 45% and a 2.25. This is the lowest I've rated any of the Bionicle stuff so far.
Yeah, same for me, which I gave it a 9.5, which is a 38% or a 1.95 star rating, which I believe is my lowest score of our entire podcast series, maybe. So,
Wow.
That yeah, I would have to check, but that might be the case. I don't know. We
Yeah,
were harsh
yeah,
on Barbie Diaries, but
I mean, I
it's
was lenient on Barbie Diaries, actually.
yeah.
You were harsh on Barbie Diaries.
To be fair, the animation of Barbie Diaries deserved it. Anyway, go listen to our Barbie Diaries episode if you want to hear
Uh huh.
our response to
exactly.
that.
Yeah.
Overall, I don't know, just this whole just talking about season 1. We'll get season 2 has its own issues, and that'll be really fun to dissect next week. But just season 1, we're going from this beloved theme of Bionicle that had deep storytelling, rich characters, cool world building, to this, where there's no like real mystery or intrigue. Everything feels really surface level, really surface level. No, like everything is a little bit arbitrary. Like we're doing this thing because the quest dude told us to do this thing, not because we have our intrinsic motivations to do this thing.
Right. There's no sense of urgency of like, oh, we're
Yeah.
are they doing it to build power? I guess so, but
Yeah.
whatever. There's also temples, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The world itself just felt like the thematically I liked the temples, like the visuals of, the Mesoamerican culture, whether it's, I was looking into it to see if it was more like Mayan or Aztec, and it seems to be just kind of loosely based on both. And I like the visuals, but they don't really play into effect at all. Where, with initial Bionicle, it was based on Polynesian culture, which made sense because all of its main locations were islands. And Polynesian culture oftentimes was about, you know, traveling from one island to another and, you know, creating a new life on a new island. Whereas this is like, okay, it is on an island, but it's also Central America, Inca, Aztec, Mayan kind of themed, which that doesn't really
Mountain
make
culture.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just very odd. Like they chose a culture, but it seems like they were just like, okay, we just need a culture to like base our looks off of. We'll just spin a wheel, and whichever one it lands on, we'll go with that.
Yeah.
And that was, I don't know, they didn't even tie it in. Like I mentioned the like pan flute for the music, but they only do that for one score. They could have tied it in just so much better. And I know that is a little bit hypocritical. We got there. Hypocritical
Yeah.
to say, because I know that Bionicle is so loosely based off of Polynesian culture, but it also isn't like, it's not just stealing the visuals and then doing nothing else with it. It's using the names for the most part in the right way and using the general, like it feels like they get a lot of the gist of the culture.
Yeah.
I say, speaking as somebody that is not part of that culture, I could be wrong, but it feels, at least from an outside perspective, like they get the gist of that culture a little bit better than with this one, where it's just like the culture is at most a backdrop and not that important to the story. And that's just unfortunate.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what I was going to say. I'm just scrolling through the art book and appreciating some of the artwork of stuff that didn't happen. There's like a villain that has like Cthulhu inspiration.
Yeah.
Miss
The art book was
Potential.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway,
that is kind of the overwhelming theme of Bionicle G2.
Yeah.
Missed potential. I think what I wrote was, to summarize my feelings on this season, was ultimately it felt like it was just entirely fluff. It felt like it was written by a high school student that had to fill out a word count, and that's it. And that's never what you want to hear about a beloved media franchise.
Yeah.
So,
Please welcome to the stage, Miss Potential.
yeah, seriously.
oh my gosh, thank you. I've been doing this for so many years. I'm so excited to work on my very next project, this big franchise. Can't wait to do that.
Season 2.
Season 2. And while we wait for season 2, thank you everyone for listening, and make sure to follow us on social media. We're Binging Barbie Podcast on Instagram and Tumblr, Binging Barbie on Twitter and Serialized, and Binging Barbie, a Barbie movie podcast on Letterboxd. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to leave a 5-star review and go to our Patreon at patreon.com/binging Barbie podcast. And we will be back next week to talk about season 2 of Journey to One. And until then, be nice to your elemental creatures. Give them a hug. Take them to school.
Indeed.
Bye.
Turn them into backpacks.
Yeah. Bye, Barbie.
Bye, Barbie.